Well, it's great to meet you. And before we get into your life as an entrepreneur and a happiness coach, I want to know first and foremost, 4 years ago, this pandemic really rearranged a lot of things for all of us. How did you survive that time period? And how did it change the way that you do things now?
I mean, this is going to sound silly, but I paid almost no attention to it.
Okay.
I quickly realized that it was all, I won't say smoke and mirrors because that's not fair. A lot of people died, but look, everything in this world, if you want to figure out what's going on, just follow the money trail. I don't know if you heard, but Kansas just filed suit against Pfizer for deceptive marketing. They can't go after them for killing people with their vaccine. So very early on, I figured this whole thing out, and I was like, this is just a big way to control us. And so I just went about my business.
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't change a whole lot at all. Our real estate company, took off. It was good for us. So
Yeah, I think that was the thing about this, without, I mean, and I'm not even into the whole conspiracy theory thing. It's just, there was just things that were inconsistent with the way that things were happening. There were so many things that didn't add up. Um, yeah, we all lived through it, but yeah, I totally get it. And I kind of did the same thing with my kids. I mean, there was things that you had to modify, but at the end of the day, it was just move on. We gotta live our lives and do the best we can. And that's pretty much the name of the game.
I mean, the shit hit the fan in like March or February.
Yeah.
My second wife walked out on me, like literally woke up one day and says, "I'm done." Moved out 7 days later. I'm like in like, oh God, the world's ending because she just left me. And in May, I'm on a plane to my buddy's house with some girl, and we're partying at the bars in Charleston with no mask or anything. So it was
Yeah.
just like different parts of the world. Like here was on complete lockdown. There it
Yeah.
was just like, what's wrong with the rest of the world?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
It
I just kind of
it's
paid no
weird.
attention.
Yeah, right. It's just like with Florida. Florida had, and there was other areas too that was very relaxed. And I've talked to a lot
Hmm.
of people in Canada and other places, New Zealand, that were just on a total lockdown, like curfews, everything was just crazy.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah, that
the scariest thing to me was that whole notion of like the 1984 Orwellian world. There was people in New York that were telling on each other,
yeah.
calling the cops if they didn't have a mask on when they left in
Yeah.
fresh air outside. It's like, whoa.
Brother, if you talk to any like an engineer, not a doctor, but an engineer who like makes those masks,
Yeah,
they'll tell you those masks never worked in the first place. The coronavirus is like 100 times smaller than the holes in the mask.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's wild, man. The whole thing's wild. So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids, third graders. It's career day. And one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer
I
him?
help I help people find happiness in their lives. I help them find the inner peace and happiness that already exists that is just clouded so much from past hurt and memories.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
So in the ninth grade, a little bit or later than that, I wanted to make a ton of money, and I didn't figure that out until 3 years ago, and it was because I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel enough, and I thought that money would allow people to love me and accept me. So I wanted to make a shitload of money.
So how did you get to this point? Take me back to where you're born and raised, and how were the seeds planted into you to get to a point where you're helping people find their destiny?
Yeah, I mean, this is all. I don't know if you want this for background, but I'll share all this on the podcast. I was trying to get my son help for anxiety. February of 2021. Yeah, 3.5 years ago, and I was on a Zoom call like this, and the performance coach was like, "You have a tick," and I'm literally like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "You blink like crazy when you talk about your childhood. You may have some unresolved childhood trauma that's affecting your son's anxiety." And I'm like, "No way! I've been a single dad for years. I do everything for my son. I love him. I take care of him. I don't beat him. I'm a great dad. But okay, if you think I got problems." And so I came out for a weekend with her and her husband in Park City, Utah. And in a 3 hour session, Joe, my life forever changed. Forever. I don't smoke weed anymore. I don't drink anymore. I'm literally in the best shape of my life. I'm in a phenomenal relationship. My net worth has grown, better relationship with my kids. Their anxiety is gone. Like everything has changed in my life because of doing the work that I now share with other people.
So Talk to me a little bit about heroes. Who's been that inspiration or that hero that's helped you get to this point?
So I've been really, really blessed to study under, I think, some of the best people in the world. I've studied under a lady named Marissa Peer, who's been doing this for 40 years. She has a company called RTT, Rapid Transformational Therapy, that combines hypnotherapy, NLP, and cognitive behavioral therapy. I've studied under Dr. Gabor Mate. I've studied under Bruce Ecker, who's like famous for memory reconsolidation. So I don't really have a hero. I've just been inspired by there's a better way to do things. There's 100 million Americans on an anti-anxiety or antidepressant drug right now, but yet hospitalizations for those two things are going up. They don't work, and they don't need to be on those drugs. And I'm just inspired to help people find a better way.
So, if you could meet one person alive on the planet right now that you find fascinating, interesting, someone that might help you in what you're doing, who would that be? Who would you love to hang out with?
Mm. Tony Robbins comes to mind, but I don't think he goes deep enough. Wow. I mean, the people I think it would be one of the people that I studied under, like actually get to spend quality time with them. Probably probably Bruce Ecker.
Yeah. What's that internal motor in you that helps you? You have to give a lot of yourself to help people find that happiness and that peace, but you also have to evolve. What has that been for you? What is that combined gumption every day to wake up and to do this work and to evolve as a human?
My life changed so dramatically, Joe, that 3.5 years ago in that Airbnb bedroom, that I was like, holy shit, I've got to give this gift. I've got to give this back to other people. Like, I literally won a lottery ticket, and I've got a bunch of other lottery tickets in my pocket that I'm handing out, and I can't just sit on them. I got to hand these lottery tickets out, because otherwise they'll never be cashed in. No one will use them.
So, what has been one of your favorite success stories? Maybe something that was difficult or seminal. What's been one that's been really high on your list that you remember?
So, I mean, it's got to be with a client. I had a client that I was like, I can remember a year and a half ago, I took him on, and I hadn't even been, I don't think I was certified in hypnosis yet. And I was debating whether I take this guy on. And I took him on. He was like, his marriage was about to end. And a year and a half later, if you ask him right now how his marriage is, he's like, it's incredible. I'm a different human being. He sent me a text saying, thank you for changing my life and my family's life. That was one of my highlights.
So, of everything that you've done in your life and everything that you've had to overcome and become, what are you the proudest of?
Uh, Making a shift in my life, like a complete total transformation.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you, and you can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've gained, the things that you've done and overcome. What advice would you give that young version of you?
This is a really interesting question. I'm going to tell you why, Joe. If I told my 18-year-old self what I now know, I never would have gone through the pain and the experience to be able to help people now.
Yeah.
But I get why you're asking the question, and I'm going to answer it. So I think I would tell that 18-year-old, wow, I mean, I would tell him that he was enough and that he doesn't have to prove anything in his life. But if you're asking the question, what did I really learn? And what I learned is that every negative thing, behavior that a human being has in their life, and pick one of 100. They drink too much, they eat too much, they shut down with when their spouse says something, they watch too much porn, they shop too much, they have anxiety, depression. Pick another 100 things, negative things. Every negative behavior that a human being has that they have trouble stopping, number one, it's not their fault, because it's their brain's perceived solution to something that it thinks is worse. The thing that it thinks is worse is always an underlying untruth that was formed in decades ago, likely in childhood, to get you through a stressful situation or when your needs weren't met as a child. So what you do is you show your mind and your brain that what's driving the negative behavior is nothing more than an untruth. And bing, 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 the mismatch detector goes off. You literally rewrite the new neural pathway. Now the negative thing has nothing to feed on. And guess what happens? It goes and it leaves forever. So that is the like the big, oh my gosh, that's what led me to change my life. And that's what I'm now doing, helping other people change their lives doing.
So when you run into a client, since you're close to this and you do this all the time, what is the number one thing that needs to be addressed that's kind of across the board with all of your clients? And when they can wrap their heads around that, it'll make it all a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's what I just said. It's the underlying cause of what they're coming to me because they're working, 100 hours a week and they don't even need the money and it's destroying their relationships. They're eating too much. They have a racing mind, they have anxiety, they have depression. What we do is we figure out, look, none of this stuff you were born with. This was a learned behavior to cope with something. Let's figure out what's driving this behavior. That's it. Most therapy and life coaches, they want to focus on the symptoms. Okay, you've got anxiety. Let's teach you how to breathe. Oh, you drink too much. Let's teach you how to go a different route home so you don't go by the liquor store. Your marriage sucks. Oh, let's tell you how to communicate better with your spouse. None of that shit works when you've got this underlying untruth, which is most of the time saying you're not good enough, you don't have what it takes, you're not lovable, you can't be your authentic self.
So are you hopeful for people? Are you hopeful for humanity? I mean, obviously you've hit this summit in your life, but overall, when you look at what we're doing and how many things, as you have mentioned, bog and bag us down from childhood on, are you hopeful?
I am hopeful. So I think where we are right now, Joe, is there's like two sides of the coin as there always are. There are things that are making this world worse. Social media, um, the shit that they put in our food. I mean, you go to Europe and 75% of the ingredients are banned, or a lot of the ingredients are banned in Europe that we eat willingly here. So I think there's a lot of things that are bad, but I also think on the flip side of that, there is starting to be an awakening. There's people that are like, we've had enough. This is silly. I mean, you believe in aliens or you don't, right? Some people say the aliens will look at us and they'll be like, those human beings are hilarious. They're all fighting each other, but don't they all realize we're one? And I don't know my opinion on aliens, honestly, but if they exist and they have these incredible spaceships, it's probably because they're working together. Can you imagine what this Earth would be like if instead of fighting each other, we would be working together? We are all one. So in that respect, you buy the red car, you see a bunch of red cars. I'm starting to see that people are awakening.
Yeah.
I wish it was going a little faster, and I'm going to do my part. I turned 51. I'm manifesting to live to be 110. So I've got 60 years of doing this. I'm going to do, my goal is to reach 1 million people. I want to help 1 million people transform their lives by getting rid of these limiting beliefs that are hidden in their subconscious mind that were serving them at one point in their life. But as adults, they're destroying them.
Yeah. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
It was advice that came out through my transformation, and it was believe that you are enough. You asked a common theme, I think, earlier. And if you boil down everyone's problems in this world, almost everything comes back to an individual's lack of self-love and not feeling enough. So no one was born not feeling enough. It was just a coping mechanism so I think the best advice is just learn to love yourself. You see what my shirt says? Be
Yeah.
your own best friend.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't say something to your best friend, don't say it to yourself. Do you realize that when you speak negatively to yourself, your brain doesn't know the difference between you talking to you and a stranger? So guess what it does? It releases cortisol. What is cortisol? It's an inflammatory. What is the basis of 70, 80, arguably 90% of every disease and illness on this planet? Inflammation. Stop talking negative to yourself. No matter what you're saying, it's a lie to begin with. I'm not smart enough. I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not this. Yes, you are. You're just saying those things because you think it's protecting you, and it's protecting you from the thing that's not even true to begin with.
Yeah.
So just start living in the truth that you are enough and you've got nothing to prove. Be a human being. You don't have to be a human doing, just being enough. You were a miracle. You were put here for a massive mission. And when you start believing that and you focus on what do entrepreneurs like myself do? And I'm not the only one. We get into business thinking, Joe, that if we make $5 or $10 million, we're going to get to this place where we feel fulfilled, we feel enough, we feel happy. You never get to that point. If you don't feel enough, ask Matt Perry from Friends, ask Whitney Houston. Well, you can't ask him anymore because they're all dead. Prince, Michael Jackson. They had all the money in the world. It didn't serve them, right? Here's the secret. Once you start being your own best friend and you start loving yourself and you find the inner peace that's already inside of you, because nothing outside of you will ever bring you happiness or peace. You can find that today. That's what I do with my clients. I help them find that today. When they find that today, do you know what the odds are of them now making $5 to $10 million? It goes through the roof because now they're hopefully focused on making an impact rather than trying to make a bunch of money to prove their worth.
Yeah. So I'm curious in the history of 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 all of these things that have happened on this planet, if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one thing with your own eyes, where would you go? What would you love to have seen happen in real
I,
time?
I would love to have walked in side by side with Jesus, uh, see how he treated people, see the crucifixion and him saying, "It's okay. They don't know what they're doing." That would be pretty badass.
Yeah.
And I'm not super religious either. But that to me, seeing him walk on water, seeing him, turn the loaves of bread into that would be that would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool. So I see all the books back there. What was the first book for you that opened the curtains, that made you want to read more, gave you that thirst?
Uh, one of the first business books I ever read when I started my business back in 2021, the home buying business, was a book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And it was how, whether you're opening one store or 5,000, you want to open your business like you're going to open 5,000 stores. So you systematize everything, because the E-Myth was the entrepreneurial myth. I'm a good barber, so I go open a business, but I don't know how to run a freaking business. So all I do is I have myself a job now that I'm probably making the same amount of money or less, but I'm working harder. So yeah, I was I hated reading as a kid, Joe. Didn't like it. Now you could set me on a beach with an umbrella and a bunch of water, and psychology books and trauma books and neuroscience books, and I could read for 8 hours a day for the rest of my life, and I promise you, I would never get bored.
So the most important question right now is, how can people reach out, find the happiness, hire you, get to where they want to be in their lives? What's the first step?
So all change begins with awareness. You either know you're in prison, or you're like me and you're thinking, hey, it's okay that I smoke weed every night. Everyone smokes weed. I drank. That's okay. Two divorces. Everyone gets divorced. Kids have anxiety. A lot of kids have anxiety. I had no idea until I went to get my son help that I was like, oh my gosh, I've been living in this invisible prison I had no idea I was in. So, how do you get out of prison? You got to know you're in prison first. So, everything starts with awareness. So, I would urge you to go right now, do yourself, your family, your business, your health a favor. Go to unlocklimitlessyou.com/quiz and take this self love quiz, because it's going to show you, do you have these underlying untruths that are driving negative behavior that you've tried for decades to change and you can't? Take the quiz. It's going to show you, do you have extreme self love, mild self love, or lack of self love? If you have mild self love or lack of self love, I promise you, every area of your life is negatively impacted. So that's where you want to start. And then you're going to be on the website. So if you want to schedule a free session with us, schedule a free session. You can talk with myself or my partner, Yvonne.
Excellent, Brad. This has been fascinating. Thank you, man. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your energy. It's been wonderful.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, sir.